on, everyone? My name is Jamon McKinney, or you can, of course, just call me Juice, because that is my nickname. Welcome, everyone, to the Juice Alert, episode number 59 for you, ladies and gentlemen, today. If you have not subscribed to the Juice Alert already, be sure to do that right about now. You will not regret it. You can, of course, find the Juice Alert on YouTube as well as podcasting platforms. That includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that great stuff. If you're watching here on YouTube, be sure to leave me a like right here on this episode. And also, if you're feeling kind and you listen on podcasting platforms, be sure to leave me a good rating and review. Like I said, those things definitely help me out right here on the show. Today, we are discussing everything related to college football. Yes, people, college football is right around the corner. There's a lot of great storylines I want to talk about and discuss today. So we're going to dive into a lot of college football. We're going to talk about Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. We're going to talk about Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines. I will also tell you why I believe USC football is, quite frankly, turning into the Dallas Cowboys of college football. I think that right now, USC today, they're the Dallas Cowboys of college football, in my opinion. I'll tell you why I believe that. I will also give my official national championship and college football playoff predictions for the 2021-2022 season. Obviously, the games are played in the year 2022 around New Year's Day and a little bit after that, but this is for the 2021 season. So I'll give my predictions for that, like I said. But before I do get started, I just wanted to say you guys can follow me on social media. My Instagram account is GHIMAN_MCKINNEY. And my Twitter account is at GHIMANMCKINNEY. And I also wanted to point out this before I tell you what I want to point out. I gotta drink some water. Good ice cold water is very refreshing. I'll tell you that right now. But if you want to get specific updates regarding this show, you can follow the Juice Alert both on Twitter and Instagram as well. The Twitter account is at the Juice Alert, and the Instagram account is the Juice Alert _. Okay, we've gotten all those things out the way. Let's get started. I want to begin the show by discussing the Alabama Crimson Tide. So as you all know, the Alabama Crimson Tide football team recently won the 2021 National Championship game over Ohio State, 52-24. That was, of course, recapping the 2020 season. People say it was the 2021 National Championship game. You get the point. But that was Nick Saban's 7th national title that he has won at Alabama. Nick Saban's won 7 national titles at Alabama. He's been there since 2007. And let me tell you something right now. The sad news for college football fans and really SEC fans or Buckeyes fans or Clemson fans, Oklahoma fans is this. Alabama's not slowing down anytime soon. At least that's how I feel. You know, a couple of years ago, people said that Clemson was going to run college football for the next 10 years, and maybe they will do so. Maybe that's the case. You know, Alabama has lost to them twice in 3 national championship appearances over the past couple of years. But Clemson to me is not quite Alabama. We just saw Ohio State give Alabama their best punch this year. Alabama was just clearly better. Listen, people, there's a difference between Big Ten speed and SEC speed, okay? The Big Ten is definitely the second best conference in America, but the SEC is better, okay? It's just the truth. Honestly, it's the truth. So, the reality is this. As long as Alabama is winning games and winning national titles, they're going to continue to get great players, okay? Because Nick Saban can go to high school recruits and say, if you come play for me, you're almost guaranteed to win a national title. Okay, because here's the thing. Think about this, people. Next 4 years, if you have to get this question right, or else you die. Okay, you have to answer this question right, or you're gonna die. Will Alabama win a national title in the next 4 years? If your answer to that question was yes, you prove my point, because you're just basically admitting that you firmly believe that at some point over the next 4 years, Alabama is going to win a national title. So if you're a high school recruit and you're thinking about going to a 4-year college and playing college football, don't you want to compete with the best of the best? Don't you want to win a national championship? That's what Nick Saban is telling these kids, okay? You get to play for national titles. You get to play for me, Nick Saban. Look at the players I put in the NFL. I put studs in the NFL. You're going to compete against the best of the best. And by the way, Alabama's recruiting has been off the charts over the past couple of years. 2017, number 1 ranked recruiting class. 2018, number 5 ranked recruiting class in the nation. 2019, first. 2020, first. 2021, first. Alabama's getting all the good players. I'm sorry, people, but you have to be able to recruit at an elite level in order to win a national title. There's a reason why the Cincinnati's and the BYU's of the world are not going to win a national title. They don't have enough good players. That's the honest truth, okay? And when you put the best players in the best facilities with the best coaches, that being Alabama pretty much, because Alabama has some of the best facilities, they have some of the best coaches in the nation, it's over. And Nick Saban is 69 years old currently. He lives and breathes football. I think Nick Saban, at worst, is coaching for another 5 years. You know, Nick Saban has that Tom Brady quality where he just lives and breathes football. And it's his life. That's what he cares about. He's not slowing down. Like people say, oh, Tom Brady's eventually going to retire. Huh. I don't know when Tom Brady's going to retire because Tom Brady loves what he does. And he continues to win. So as long as Nick Saban continues to win and continues to like coaching football, it's a wrap. Okay, I'm not going to say that Ohio State and Oklahoma and Clemson don't have a chance to pitch in and maybe win a couple of national titles along the way. But right now, Alabama's still the cream of the crop. Okay, they really are. Right now, they're a better program than Ohio State. They're a better program than Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, LSU. They're the cream of the crop, man. Okay? So I think that Alabama is not slowing down anytime soon. I think Nick Saban is going to be there for at least the next 5 years. If I were to bet money, they'll probably win at least 1 or 2 national titles over that time span. I really don't see anyone else challenging Alabama. You know, Georgia's kind of close, but I don't trust Kirby Smart in big games yet. He has to prove to me that he can beat Nick Saban. I don't think Jimbo Fisher has enough good players at Texas A&M. And then at Orgeron, I think LSU was kind of sort of a one-year wonder a couple of years ago with Joe Burrow, an NFL quarterback that's really good. So that's how I feel about Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide. They're the cream of the crop of college football. And Alabama football is not slowing down anytime soon, sadly, for you college football fans out there that are rooting against Alabama. It's just not going to happen in my opinion. I could be wrong. And I honestly hope I'm wrong because I believe in parity. I root for parity, but I think I still think there'll be a lack of parity over the next couple of years in college football because of Alabama football. I want to now talk about Ryan Day. You know, I've been a big believer of Ryan Day from day number 1. Once he was hired and named the Ohio State football head coach, I felt very confident that he was going to live up to that title. Like when you're the Ohio State football coach, you got to be very good at what you do. I think Ryan Day is really good at what he does. You know, a couple of years ago, he was the quarterback coach for the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers eventually. He goes on to Ohio State. Ohio State actually changes up a lot of things because of Ryan Day. You know, he implemented a very unique offense for Dwayne Haskins and the Ohio State Buckeyes back in 2018, a system that allowed Dwayne Haskins to really flourish. We saw what he did this past year with Justin Fields. Like Ryan Day as an offensive mind and an offensive genius, he's one of the best in all college football. He's designed some really good offenses. He's really made things comfortable for his quarterbacks. If I'm a quarterback, if I can't potentially play for Lincoln Riley or Nick Saban, I think that Ryan Day is pretty much right up there as far as some of the other coaches that I would consider playing for, because they're going to put me in a great position to put up great numbers and develop me properly, okay? And in 2018, when Ryan Day was the offensive coordinator, he actually had to fill in for Urban Meyer because Urban Meyer got in trouble for 3 games, and he did a pretty good job. Ohio State did miss a beat, and I have to admit, Ryan Day did inherit a great situation. Like, becoming the head coach of Ohio State, based on where Ohio State currently is right now, like, Urban Meyer pretty much left everything on a silver platter for Ryan Day. It was not a situation where Ryan Day had to overcome a ton of adversity. This program has been ready to win for the past couple of years, and Ryan Day just quite frankly, he really just hasn't had to mess it up. And he has not messed it up. He's done a great job. And they always say, if you have great players around you, if you have great coaches, or if you're in a great situation, you need to dominate. And that's what Patrick Mahomes has done over the past couple of years. Everyone says, oh, Patrick Mahomes has Tyreek Hill. He has Travis Kelce. He has Andy Reid. Patrick Mahomes in the past 3 years has won a league MVP, won a Super Bowl, and been back to a Super Bowl. People talked about, oh, Kevin Durant. You know, he has Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr is his head coach. It's stacked in Kevin Durant's favor. Well, Kevin Durant, he pretty much dominated and made the league unfair by joining the Golden State Warriors and went on to win 2 championships, 2 Finals MVPs. He did what he needed to do. And Ryan Day pretty much has done what he's needed to do. In 2 years at Ohio State, he's 20-2. That's his record. Okay, that's off the charts. That's amazing. And the 2 guys that he's lost to are Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban. 2 of the best coaches, if not the 2 best coaches right now in all college football. And Ryan Day also has been an amazing recruiter at Ohio State so far. The recruiting at Ohio State has been off the charts with Ryan Day. The next step, however, for Ryan Day is this. Ryan Day must now go out there and win the Ohio State Buckeyes a national championship. I believe he ultimately will do so. I mean, he's already been to 1 national title game, obviously falling short to Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide. But if you're getting to national title games in your second year as a college football head coach, you're doing something right, okay? But here's the thing. I want to be very clear. Ryan Day, from this point going forward, he now is officially on the clock. Because here's also the thing. Ryan Day, quite frankly, he's been on the clock ever since he accepted the job to become the Ohio State Buckeyes head football coach. Every year at Ohio State is national championship or bust. And if you disagree with that, well, for one, you're wrong. And number 2, you don't understand the magnitude of the job in which Ryan Day took, okay? Because if you're coaching a program like Clemson, Alabama, or Ohio State, I'm sorry, people, but the expectations every year are national championship or bust. Of course you celebrate the Big Ten championship wins. Of course you celebrate getting to the playoffs. That's all great and dandy. But every single year, those types of programs, they're striving for national championships because they have national championship talent. I'm sorry, but if you have a job where you're coaching the Steelers, the Patriots, or the Lakers, those are some of the top jobs in the country. Every person out there dreams of having coaching for a team like that. For the Lakers, the Steelers, the Patriots, the Buckeyes, the Clemson Tigers, the Alabama Crimson Tide. It's someone's dream to be the head football coach or the head coach for the Lakers or someone like that, you know? So from this point going forward, I think Ryan Day legitimately has about a 4-year window. where, in my opinion, over the next 4 years, if he doesn't win a national championship, it's a failure. And Ohio State needs to think about replacing him. Because let me tell you something right now. If Ryan Day can't win a national championship, entering his 6th or 7th season as Ohio State Buckeyes head coach, I guarantee Ohio State will find a head coach who can win a national title. Because Ohio State recruits way too well. They have way too good of facilities to the point where they need to be winning national titles. They must be in the picture. So Ryan Day's done some great things, but right now he's on the clock. And that's the next step for Ryan Day. Can Ryan Day officially get over the hump, or will he fail? I think that ultimately he will go over the hump, but only time will tell. I want to now transition to USC football, because the reality of USC football to me is pretty sad. And I know some of you USC homers out there are probably going to disagree, but here's the reality. USC's football program has become a mirror image of the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, people, USC has become the Dallas Cowboys of college football. Here's where both the Cowboys and the Trojans are very similar. At one point, the Dallas Cowboys were a dynasty. 1990, they were a dynasty. They had success early on before that as well. But legitimately, at one point, the Dallas Cowboys dominated the NFL. And at one point, USC was dominating college football. In the early 2000s, they won multiple national titles. But today, despite the brand being popular, to this day still somewhat, despite the top-notch facilities, USC and the Dallas Cowboys football programs, they're no longer top-notch programs. They're selling for average head coaches. They no longer get the best recruits, or they're no longer the most talented team in the league, aka the Dallas Cowboys are no longer the most talented team in the league year in and year out. And quite frankly, the hype and popularity of USC football doesn't match the results on the football field. And the same thing with the Dallas Cowboys can be said. When's the last time that the Dallas Cowboys have legitimately been in the Super Bowl conversation? Everyone talks about, oh, the Dallas Cowboys are America's team. It's a popular brand, bruh. Let me tell you something, bruh, okay? All you Cowboy homers, all you USC homers out there, we all know that other teams right now today just simply matter a whole lot more than the Dallas Cowboys. Teams like the Chiefs, the Packers, the Rams, the Buccaneers, the Patriots, the Steelers. Right now today, those teams matter a lot more than the Dallas Cowboys. They're much more relevant, much more interesting. And we all know when it comes to college football right now today that Ohio State, Oklahoma, Clemson, LSU, and Alabama, and maybe even Oregon, those teams all matter more today than USC football. Because USC, quite frankly, they're no longer the cream of the crop, and they're no longer all that interesting. They're just not, okay? Even in the Pac-12, okay? Oregon and Utah over the past couple of seasons, they've been more successful programs than USC. They're out recruiting USC at times. Oregon's been out recruiting them over the past couple of years, okay? Stealing the recruits. And no one is bending over backwards to watch USC football games anymore. They're going to bend over backwards to watch Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama. You want to know why? Because those teams are entertaining and they're going to win big games. Same thing with the Cowboys. No one's bending over backwards to watch the Dallas Cowboys every single Sunday like they used to, okay? And what happened to the Dallas Cowboys and the USC Trojans having elite head coaches for their programs? Because several years ago, the USC Trojans had Pete Carroll as their head coach. And lately, they've been selling for Steve Sarkisian and Clay Helton. And again, I think Clay Helton's good, but is he USC football caliber good? I'm not sure, but hey, maybe the standards have been lowered at USC, you know? And when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, they used to have Tom Landry, Jimmy Johnson, but lately they've been selling for Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy. And I think Jason Garrett's a nice guy. I think Mike McCarthy is a decent head coach, but is he good enough to be the Dallas Cowboys head coach? If I'm a Cowboys fan, I felt there were better candidates out there. I felt that Mike McCarthy was way too safe of a hire for the Cowboys. So the point is, I don't know, USC and Dallas with the Cowboys and the Trojans, they're no longer top-notch programs like they used to be. And that's the world we live in. I think the standards have actually lowered for both programs, sadly. The USC Trojans have become the Dallas Cowboys of college football. And quite frankly, the Dallas Cowboys have become the USC Trojans of the National Football League. Okay, everyone, I'm going to take a short break. When I return, I will talk about the team that I believe is going to win the national championship this year, heading into the 2021-2022 college football season, and who their coach is. You know, I'll talk about their coach and a lot more other great topics. Don't go anywhere, people. I will be right back. This is Jamon McKinney, and you were tuned into the Juice Alert. Okay, everyone, I am back. And I want to talk about Lincoln Riley because I 100% believe that Lincoln Riley is more than capable of winning the Oklahoma Sooners the national championship. Okay, I'm a big-time believer in guys like Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban. Those are the two best coaches in all college football. I wouldn't quite put Lincoln Riley in the elite head coach category just because there's only 2, maybe 3 elite college football head coaches out there. But I think Lincoln Riley's in the next tier. I think that he's in the tier with Ryan Day, Jimbo Fisher, Pat Fitzgerald. The point is, Lincoln Riley is really good at his job. And in a couple of years, I won't be surprised if we're calling Lincoln Riley an elite college football head coach. Because so far, Lincoln Riley over the past couple of years, since he has taken over at Oklahoma, he's done a great job. A record of 45-8. And 3 of the last 4 years, Lincoln Riley has made the college football playoffs. So 3 of the 4 years he's been at Oklahoma, he's made the playoffs. That's a great job. And I have to admit that even when Bob Stoops left Oklahoma and left that situation for Lincoln Riley on the table, I felt Oklahoma as a program had lost a little bit of juice. But I think Lincoln Riley has brought juice back to the Oklahoma football program. And Oklahoma's losing to the likes of Georgia, you know, and LSU and things like that. I can accept that. Like, they're not constantly being overpowered in the Big 12. They're constantly winning their conference. They're getting to the playoffs. But here's the thing. The next step for Lincoln Riley is winning a national championship. Now, I firmly believe that if Lincoln Riley had better players on defense the past couple of years, Oklahoma probably already would have won a national championship because we know one thing about Lincoln Riley and his football team at Oklahoma. They're going to score some points. They're going to light up that scoreboard. So the biggest thing for Lincoln Riley is fixing Oklahoma's defense and getting over the top because you're going to beat physical teams like Georgia, like Alabama, like LSU, like Ohio State if you want to win a national championship. And we saw that even in the NFL, once Patrick Mahomes immediately got a defense, he won a Super Bowl. Kansas City's defense was terrible his first season as a starter. The second year, they improved the defense. Patrick Mahomes immediately wins a Super Bowl. Okay? So, I think that if Lincoln Riley, if he fixes that defense, he'll start immediately competing for and winning national championships. But that's where he's going to need to improve. But I do believe Lincoln Riley's capable. And I also want to say this. If I'm a quarterback that's in high school and I'm looking at some of the top schools in the nation. There's no way that I'm passing on an opportunity to play for Lincoln Riley and the Oklahoma Sooners if I know I legitimately have a chance to start at that school. Because one thing we know about Lincoln Riley is this. He will develop you into potentially a franchise quarterback if you're talented enough. We've seen it with Baker Mayfield. We've seen it with Kyler Murray. And potentially, we might be seeing it with Jalen Hurts. Okay? And Spencer Rattler might be the next guy up at Oklahoma because Spencer Rattler, he's super duper talented. I believe in Spencer Rattler, and I believe he has a chance to become a great franchise quarterback one day. So, again, Lincoln Riley, super talented coach. He's fun. He's creative. He recruits well. And I believe one day Lincoln Riley will find a way to win Oklahoma a national championship or two. And I believe he's really great at his job. So, I'm just going to cut straight to the point right here. I believe the Oklahoma Sooners are going to win the national championship for the 2021-2022 season. I believe 2021 and heading into the championship game in 2022, it will be Oklahoma's year. Okay? Recently, ESPN came out with their AP poll where they had Alabama ranked number 1, Oklahoma ranked number 2, Clemson ranked number 3, Ohio State ranked number 4, Georgia ranked number 5, and Texas A&M ranked number 6. So those are the top 6 programs heading into the 2021 college football season. And I believe Oklahoma is rated properly. I think Oklahoma is amongst one of the most talented teams in all college football. They're the second rated team heading into this year. Again, AP polls and preseason rankings aren't everything, but I think Oklahoma's really good. And I believe this is one of the best opportunities that Oklahoma will have to win a national championship, really of recent memory, okay? I felt that they were really good in 2017, the year in which they lost in the Rose Bowl to Georgia, led by Baker Mayfield. That team was really good. But this team is just as talented as that team, if not more talented than that team, in my opinion, okay? And this is the type of year where Oklahoma might have things lined up for them already. Because Ohio State, they lose Justin Fields this year to the NFL. Alabama, they're retooling. Mac Jones is no longer there. Clemson, Trevor Lawrence is no longer there. Notre Dame isn't going to be quite as good. Okay? Teams like that. Texas A&M, not quite sold. The point is, Oklahoma has a legitimate shot to win a national championship because 3 of the 4 big dogs have questions. Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson. Are these guys going to be able to replace these quarterbacks? Are they going to be just as good as last year? I don't know. Okay? And one thing we know about recent memory regarding college football and national championships is this. You need a star quarterback to win a national championship. Because here's the list of quarterbacks that have won national championships in college the past couple of years. 2016, Deshaun Watson. 2017, Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts. 2018, Trevor Lawrence. 2019, Joe Burrow. 2020, Mac Jones. I believe in 2021 and in 2022, the year in which the national championship game will be played, Spencer Rattler can be that guy. And Oklahoma is loaded at wide receiver. They're loaded at running back. Their offensive line is still pretty good. And their defense returns nearly all their stars. The defense is the biggest question for me regarding Oklahoma. And it's pretty much been that way over the past 4 to 5 seasons because we know Oklahoma is going to score some points. Can they get enough stops on defense? I believe they can this year because over the past couple of years, Oklahoma's defense has taken tremendous strides forward. And now the Oklahoma defense is in the 3rd year under defensive coordinator Alex Grinch. 3rd year to me is going to be the charm. And over the final 7 games this past college football season, the Oklahoma defense played extremely well, allowing only 17 points per game. And Oklahoma in the bowl game, they destroyed Florida. They beat a very good Iowa State team. Okay? All Oklahoma needs is average defense, and they can win a national championship. And Lincoln Riley, I believe in him. I think that he's one of the best head coaches in all college football over the past 4 years. He's got a record of 45-8. I think that is Lincoln Riley and the Oklahoma Sooners year this year during the 2021-2022 college football season. Now, Oklahoma will have to play Nebraska. They will have to travel to Kansas State. They will have to play Texas, and they're probably going to have to play Iowa State twice and beat them twice, potentially, in order to win the Big 12. But I do expect Oklahoma to win the Big 12 at 13-0 or either 12-1. I believe that they can go on to win the national title, and I believe they will win the national title this year. Oklahoma, to me, should be the pick to win the national championship for the 2021 season. So, in the 2022 national championship game, Oklahoma will win versus whoever they play, whether it be Ohio State, Clemson, or Alabama, or Georgia. I believe Oklahoma is the team to beat, and that's how I feel. So I want to now transition to Jim Harbaugh, because the 2021 college football season is upon us, and we are entering year number 7 of the Jim Harbaugh era at Michigan. And I will admit, Jim Harbaugh has won games at Michigan. In the 6 years he's been there, he's won 69% of his games. The 6 years prior to Jim Harbaugh getting to Michigan, Michigan only won 56% of their games. So there's been a jump in winning percentage since Jim Harbaugh's gotten there. And there's something to be said there, because ever since Jim Harbaugh's gotten to Michigan, the Big Ten has gotten much, much better. Penn State's much better. Wisconsin's much better. Ohio State is legitimately an elite program. Like, the Big Ten is a real legitimate conference, okay? But here's the thing. When it comes to Jim Harbaugh and his time at Michigan, just winning games isn't enough. That's the reality. Because here's the thing. The problem is this. Jim Harbaugh was not just brought to Michigan to just win games 6 years in. Jim Harbaugh was brought in to beat Ohio State and turn Michigan back into a Tier 1 college football program once again. And right now, today, Wisconsin and Penn State, to me, are clearly better programs. Maybe not Penn State, but I think that legitimately Ohio State and Wisconsin are the 2 best Big Ten programs. Jim Harbaugh and Michigan are behind. And we are 6 years into the Jim Harbaugh era, entering a 7th season, and Jim Harbaugh has yet to beat Ohio State. And he's not winning many bowl games, and he's losing to the likes of Wisconsin and Penn State. Heck, Jim Harbaugh is only 500 versus little brother, Michigan State. They've had some bad losses to Michigan State over the past couple of years. Last year, the Michigan Wolverines had no business losing to Michigan State. Michigan State was bad last year. Had a new head coach. Not a good football team. And they went on the road into Michigan's own building and beat them. The point is, Jim Harbaugh's underachieved so far at Michigan. And I understand why Michigan fans are upset, because there was real reason to believe that Jim Harbaugh was going to turn Michigan back into a legitimate national championship program year in and year out. And so far, Michigan's just an okay program. They're not bad. They're not average. They're okay. They're a little above average, but that's about it. And that's nothing to write home about if you're Jim Harbaugh. Because here's the thing. Jim Harbaugh at one point went to the NFL as a head coach and led the 49ers to a Super Bowl appearance. He didn't win a Super Bowl, but he at least got there. And I thought the 49ers were wrong to let him go. Okay? And they've moved on to Kyle Shanahan. But the point is, Harbaugh was very successful in San Francisco. He also had a lot of success at Stanford. Okay? And that's a school where you don't get a lot of the top flight recruits just because a lot of students can't even get into Stanford because of the academics. And while Michigan is an academically challenging school, it's not as hard as Stanford, okay? And we're 6 years in, people, and the big games have not been won consistently by Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines. And there's really no excuses because guys like Brian Kelly and Paul Chryst at both Notre Dame and Wisconsin have arguably had less top-level recruits than Jim Harbaugh, and they're getting more results. So I don't want to hear that, oh, Michigan's an academically challenging school. Oh, Michigan's in the Big Ten. When Paul Chryst and Brian Kelly, they're turning water into wine with 2- and 3-star recruits. So I don't want to hear that, okay? You're 6 years in, 7 years in. This has been more than enough time for Jim Harbaugh to establish a culture, to get his players in his program, to recruit at a high level. And he's failed to do so. I understand that Ohio State's on a whole nother level. But we expected more from Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines. And the pressure is now on Jim Harbaugh to beat Ohio State. And I don't believe he's going to do it. Because Ohio State has way better athletes, and they're a much better program today than Michigan right now. Okay, so the only way I really truly see Jim Harbaugh staying at Michigan over the next 2 seasons is if he eventually beats Ohio State. And I don't believe he's capable of doing it. I don't think that Michigan has the players. I think that Ryan Day flat out is a better college football coach than Jim Harbaugh. And Michigan at some point is going to have to make a choice because Michigan's good, but they're not great, okay? We got to give Harbaugh some credit. He's won games in Michigan. Michigan is a winning program, but they're not a top-notch program like we thought they would be. So Michigan is going to have to make a choice. Are we okay with being a program that wins about 8 to 9 games, maybe 10 games in a great year, pretty much for the next couple of years? Or do we want to upgrade, tear this thing down, and start over and go for national championships and go for the likes of Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama? They will have to make a choice because I think that ultimately you just can't choose one or the other, okay? Either you decide, okay, we're okay with what Harbaugh's bringing, or we're tearing this thing down. Personally, I would tear it down because there's no point in just being okay every single year. I think that you should try to compete for national titles, but that's how I feel. We'll see how Michigan feels going forward, but Harbaugh is 6 years in, hasn't beaten Ohio State, has lost some games that he should have won to Michigan State, isn't even better today right now than Wisconsin or Penn State, in my opinion, and that's how I feel. And I think a lot of Michigan fans are fed up with Jim Harbaugh as well. We'll see what happens, but the pressure is on Jim Harbaugh to beat Ohio State, or he's going to be out of there. Because if you're the head coach in Michigan, your job description should be beating Ohio State. Because even if Michigan loses every single game on their schedule, if they somehow find a way to beat Ohio State, some fans will deem that season a success. Because that rivalry means so much to so many fans. And I think that Michigan's football program owes it to their fans to have a guy that can beat Ohio State one day. So we'll see what Harbaugh does, but I'm not all that confident going forward. So when it comes to Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs, expectations for Georgia this upcoming season in 2021, they're sky high. And it should be that way. And really over the past couple of years, the expectations have been sky high. But like I said, it should be that way. Look, I'm just going to say this right now. Kirby Smart has done a great job of putting the Georgia Bulldogs football program back on the map. He really has. He's recruited very well. He's established a great culture. He's putting players in the NFL. Georgia's one of the best programs in all of college football once again. But here's the thing. This will be Kirby Smart's 6th season at Georgia this year. And now there's legitimate pressure on Kirby Smart to win the big one. Because if you're 6, 7, 8 years in, then the talk about, oh, we need to establish a culture, I need to recruit my players, that time's over. That's my biggest knock on Jim Harbaugh. Bro, you've been in Michigan for over 5 years. The clock's ticking. You got to beat Ohio State at some point. And at some point, you can't just keep saying, oh, maybe this is the year. Oh, maybe this is the year for Georgia. No, Where are the results? Okay? Once you get to year 6, 7, 8, that's enough time. And we're at a point where Kirby Smart should not be applauded for winning 10 games at Georgia. It's nice. It's great, but it's expected now because Georgia is at that level. Okay? And Georgia's got everything they need to win a national championship. Star wide receivers, great defense full of athletes, an established coaching staff, and now Kirby Smart legitimately actually has a quarterback. No more Stetson Bennett, no more Jake Fromm. He's got JT Daniels, who was one of the top high school recruits a while back. Okay, he was one of the best high school quarterbacks in his draft class. And if I were to bet money, if JT Daniels goes out there and has a pretty good season this year, he'll probably be a first-round draft pick into the NFL. He's a pretty talented quarterback. So Kirby Smart now has a quarterback. Okay, so you got the defense, you got the offensive line, you've established your culture, you're just as talented as Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson from top to bottom from a recruiting standpoint. What's the excuse, Kirby? No more excuses. It is time for Kirby Smart to win Georgia a national championship. And by the way, this year in 2021, this is a prime opportunity because Alabama, they're reloading this year. Clemson loses Trevor Lawrence. Ohio State loses Justin Fields. This is a prime opportunity for Georgia. The expectations are sky high, and they should be. And from this point going forward, Kirby Smart should be judged on whether or not he beats LSU, he beats Florida, or if he beats Alabama, or if he wins a national title, because Georgia has the talent to do it. And at some point, Kirby Smart, you're going to have to beat Alabama. If I'm going to say that Jim Harbaugh at some point needs to beat Ohio State, I have to be fair. I have to give the same energy to Kirby Smart. If you're the Georgia football head coach, at some point, in order to get over the hump, you're going to have to beat Alabama. And it's not like Kirby Smart doesn't have talent. Okay? Georgia's roster is loaded. So no more excuses for Kirby Smart. The pressure is now on Kirby Smart to win a national championship for the Georgia Bulldogs. Will he do so? I honestly have my doubts because I don't think Kirby Smart is a great big game head coach. I've seen Georgia fold under pressure versus the LSUs and Alabamas of the world over the past couple of years. But hey, Georgia could prove me wrong. Only time will tell. So I now want to talk about Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. So Dabo Swinney has been the head coach at Clemson for Clemson football since 2008. That's 13 years. And during that 13-year stretch, Dabo Swinney has won over 80% of his games. He has a record overall of 140 wins and 33 losses. He is 10-7 in bowl games. And he has won 2 national championships. Both of those national championship victories coming over Alabama, led by head coach Nick Saban. Alabama might be the best program in college football currently right now. So that's a big accomplishment for Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. Everyone talks about how Dabo Swinney's great, but we rarely talk about why that's the case. What has made Dabo Swinney so successful with the Clemson Tigers? What has made Clemson such a successful program? Okay, here's the thing. What makes Dabo Swinney an elite head coach is this, at least for college football. What makes him an elite college football head coach? This is what makes him elite. Dabo Swinney is a player's head coach. Okay? See, when you're a college football head coach, you're going to have to relate to teenagers, 16 and 17 and 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, things like that, because you have to recruit those players to play for you. You're talking to not 25-year-olds, not 26-year-olds. You're coming into the living room and the dining room and the family room of high schoolers, guys that are still maturing, learning to be men. And you have to convince those guys that you're a great program for them to be a part of. So I always talk about how, when you look at Urban Meyer is going to be the head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. it's a whole different animal in the NFL compared to college football, because in college football, you're dealing with a bunch of kids, guys that are still maturing and maturing into the grown men they are going to be. In the NFL, you're dealing with millionaires and guys that have egos, but you have to be able to groom and develop guys in college. And I think that Dabo Swinney is a player's head coach. He really relates to his players. He's a guy that seems very passionate about what he does, and he's a guy that I personally would like to play for. I haven't met the guy personally, but based on the reports I hear and based on the stories I hear about Dabo Swinney and based on how I see him interacting with his players, I think that that's a guy that I definitely would be comfortable investing my future in, meaning I'm going to be a part of that program for 3 to 4 years, and he's a guy that I'd be comfortable having him as my head coach and my quote-unquote guidance counselor, and players have talked about Dabo Swinney with rave reviews. They rave about this guy, and let's be honest, Dabo Swinney is a great recruiter. And I think that Dabo Swinney is very honest with his players. Like, he is very upfront about what players' roles are going to be. Like, Dabo Swinney recently had an interview with Colin Cowherd on the Colin Cowherd podcast, several months ago, where he talked about, hey, I'm going to be honest with these players, and he talked about how if guys are not willing to get on the bandwagon with Clemson very early, like if we offer you a scholarship and you're not going to take that right away, we're going to move on, So I think that Dabo is a very honest guy. He wants players that 100% are all in with his program. And I think that he's also very honest with his players, like I said, about what their role will be at Clemson. Like, he's going to tell you straight up, hey, you maybe need to gain a little bit of weight. Maybe you need to lose some weight. Maybe you need to get faster. But if you put in the work and you develop and you want to be part of our program, you can do something special. And maybe you can win a national championship with us. I mean, let's be honest, people. I'm going to do the same thing I did earlier with Nick Saban. I'm going to put you guys to the test, where I asked the question. And you have to get this question right or else you're going to die. So, do or die question for you right here. You get this question wrong, you're going to be executed. So here's the question. Do you believe over the next 4 years, Clemson is going to win a national title? If you answer the question yes, then you just proved my point, because you were forced to be honest with yourself, and you were honest with me and said Clemson over the next 4 years probably going to win a national championship. So if you said over the next 4 years Clemson is going to win a national championship, well, if you have a student enrolling in Clemson and they're going to be a part of that program for 4 years, more than likely, probably going to win a national championship. So that's one thing that Dabo Swinney can tell his recruits. If you come play for me, you probably are going to win a national championship during your 4 years here. Okay? And also, one other thing that's very underrated about Dabo Swinney, other than the fact that he recruits very well, like Dabo Swinney, actually, if you look at his recruiting classes, he doesn't have a ton of top 5 recruiting classes. He gets guys in his program that fits his culture. Of course, he's going to get a Xavier Thomas, a Trevor Lawrence, a Brian Brees, top of the level stud players that can play anywhere in the country. But what defines Dabo Swinney's recruiting classes are the guys that you don't hear about, the guys that he develops from the ground up, the Hunter Renfros, the Grady Jarretts, guys that were maybe not the most known players in high school, but they went to Clemson and they developed under Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. And here's one other very underrated thing about Dabo Swinney. Compared to Nick Saban is losing assistant coaches and coordinators left and right every single year. Meanwhile, most of Dabo Swinney's coaching staff decides to stay at Clemson. You want to know why? Because Dabo Swinney provides a family atmosphere. I'm not saying that Nick Saban doesn't provide a family atmosphere, but I think that Dabo is a little bit more, a wrap your arms around these guys type of coach. He's going to be very appreciative of these guys. He's going to get time to really get to know his staff. And for whatever reason, a guy like Brett Venables, who is getting calls to be a defensive coordinator in the NFL pretty much every single year for the past 5 years, there's a reason why Brett Venables decides to stay at Clemson. Because it's a family atmosphere, because it's a successful program, because he believes things are all great at Clemson. Why should I leave? Okay? So that's a very underrated thing about Dabo Swinney, is that he keeps his coaching staff intact. They're not turning around coaching staffs every single year like Alabama. guys want to stay at Clemson and coach. And here's one other thing about Dabo Swinney. He makes adjustments very well. Like, for example, Clemson was getting their teeth kicked in by Alabama a couple of years ago in the national championship game when Deshaun Watson was their starting quarterback. And in the second half, Dabo Swinney made adjustments. Deshaun Watson was able to rally the troops. The Clemson Tigers win that game. And so many times we've seen the Clemson Tigers make halftime adjustments and come out the gates blazing in the second half. And a lot of these big games versus the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, a lot of these big games that Dabo Swinney wins is won by the second half heroics of the Clemson Tigers. And that's a credit to Dabo Swinney for being able to make adjustments. And here's another thing. Dabo Swinney is a fighter. He had to fight to keep his job at Clemson after his third season there as the head coach when he went below 500. His record was below 500 in his third year. Dabo Swinney used to be a college football wide receiver. At Alabama, he was scrappy, he was tough. He had to fight. He wasn't this physically gifted guy, where he was 6'5", built out of a lab like a Calvin Johnson. No. Dabo had to be scrappy. He had to fight. And I think that the players and the Clemson program has taken on that personality trait of Dabo Swinney, because if Dabo Swinney is a fighter, his players are going to be fighters. They're going to fight to the very end. So that's what makes Dabo Swinney an elite head coach, in my opinion. He's done a great job at Clemson. I believe they're set up to be a great program for the next 10 years. The ACC is not very good. And outside of, Alabama, maybe Ohio State, I think Clemson is right up there as far as being an elite program. In no particular order, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, LSU, and Oklahoma, to me, those are the top tier programs. Those are the programs that are gonna run college football for the foreseeable future until someone does something about it. So Dabo Swinney's a great guy, and that's what I think makes him an elite head coach for the Clemson Tigers in college football. So, Texas and Oklahoma have agreed to start joining the ACC conference starting in the year of 2025. And this ultimately is a money grab for both Oklahoma and Texas. This is another opportunity to bring in more revenue and things like that. I get it. You want to make money, and it's all about the money. But I will also say this. Now that Texas and Oklahoma will be playing in the SEC, this might increase their chances of getting more SEC caliber players, because there are some high school players out there that will just automatically scratch off the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the Big 10 because they want to play against the big dogs. There are legitimately great players out there that just want to play in the SEC, the best conference. So with those programs now being in that conference, that attracts a whole new audience of high school recruits for both Texas and Oklahoma. And I think that at some point, pretty much every top program is going to find a way to try to join the SEC and the College Football Playoff Committee. They're just going to find a way to put the four best SEC teams in the playoffs every single year, probably. It will probably come down to something like that, depending on if the College Football Playoffs expands or not. We'll see. But here's my take on Oklahoma and Texas agreeing to join the SEC starting in 2025. I laugh at the decision because this is a major mistake on the part of Oklahoma and Texas. Oklahoma and Texas will 100% regret joining the SEC. Because here's the thing. The SEC is the best conference in all of college football, and it's not even close. I think the Big Ten deserves some respect, but even the SEC is a step up from the Big Ten from a competition standpoint, okay? In the SEC, you obviously have Alabama, but you also have Georgia, you also have Florida, you also have Texas A&M, you also have LSU, and you also have Auburn. Let me tell you something right now. If Auburn is arguably the sixth best team in your if Auburn is arguably the sixth best college football program in your conference, that conference is absolutely loaded. And not to mention the Tennessees and the South Carolinas of the world, they're not great, but they can catch you on a bad Saturday if you're slacking. The SEC is no cakewalk, people. Not at all. I don't think Oklahoma and Texas fanboys understand that. In the SEC, there are absolutely no weeks off. Zero. Zilch. Okay? Because in the Big 12, you get to beat up on teams like Kansas, Baylor, West Virginia, and Texas Tech. Basketball schools. Meanwhile, in the SEC, just the SEC playing style will wear your team down. In the Big 12, you know what that conference is all about? That conference is all about pillow fighting, being finesse football teams. They don't play a lot of defense, and they like scoring a lot of points. And you're going to trade that for Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and LSU? Good luck, okay? Because in the SEC, there are no breaks, okay? The SEC, from a physical style of football, is light years ahead of the Big 12. Okay, that's just the reality. And here's the thing: if you're Oklahoma, I don't agree with the decision because every single year, if you win the Big 12 conference, you're pretty much a lock to make the playoffs. Okay, and really, there's no one else challenging Oklahoma in the Big 12. So while life is good, run with it, Oklahoma. Like, take advantage of this opportunity. But if you're Oklahoma, you're one of the best programs in all college football. I say right now, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, maybe LSU. Those are the five best programs in all college football. I can understand why Oklahoma might have their ego, sky high and say, hey, we're going to try this thing. But Texas, you've got no business joining the SEC. No business. Texas needs to focus on beating TCU and Kansas and Oklahoma State because they're barely beating those teams right now. So I don't agree with Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC. I think it's going to be a huge mistake for both programs, and they'll be exposed pretty quickly because the SEC, they'll bump them into shape pretty quickly. So the year 2021 is an opportunity for the Cincinnati Bearcats football program to do something special. Right now, according to the ESPN AP poll, heading into the 2021 college football season, Cincinnati football is ranked number 8 in the country. And that's about right to be, because I think that Cincinnati is a really talented football team heading into 2021. And Cincinnati has a chance to be the first group of 5 college football team to make it into the college football playoffs, okay? They're pretty talented. They have one of the most talented teams in the country this year in 2021. They're well coached. I don't think Luke Fickell gets enough credit for the job that he's done at Cincinnati. He's done a great job of building that program up. Obviously, you have Desmond Ridder, who might be in the Heisman Trophy conversation this year when it's all said and done. He's got a live NFL arm. Is a pretty mobile quarterback. And when it's all said and done, if he has a great year, I won't be surprised if he sneaks into the first round of the NFL draft, okay? Because the NFL is always in the saturated market for quarterbacks, and he has a strong arm. He's mobile. There'll be a spot in the place for him in the NFL somewhere, okay? USC also has pretty solid wide receivers and running backs. The defense is very good, especially the secondary, led by Amon Sauce Gardner, who's one of the best defensive backs in the entire nation. Okay, Cincinnati, from top to bottom, they have a pretty complete football team. There's really no weaknesses on this football team. They don't quite have the top-of-the-line talent of Alabama, Clemson, or Ohio State, but this is a well-rounded, good football team, okay? And more than likely, Cincinnati's going to have to run the table this year. And I think they have a chance to do it because here's the thing. Cincinnati, if you watch them this past year in the bowl game versus Georgia, if it were not for a couple of plays that didn't go their way, Cincinnati could have legitimately knocked off Georgia this year, okay? This past year in the bowl game. They were really good. So, and by the way, Georgia has real NFL players, okay? They're no scrub. They have a bunch of NFL players that are going to be playing on Sundays on their roster. So, and Cincinnati matched it pretty well physically. So, they showed the ability to hold their own with one of the big dogs. And many people are picking Georgia to win the national championship this year. I'm not one of those people. I believe Oklahoma is going to win the national championship this year. But here's the thing. If Cincinnati can run the table, it will definitely increase their chances of getting into the playoffs. Now, I will say, if they don't run the table, their chances decrease tremendously because let's say the committee is deciding between one loss Cincinnati, one loss Ohio State, and one loss Georgia. Let's just say Georgia has one loss, Ohio State has one loss, Cincinnati has one loss. The committee is going to favor Ohio State and Georgia. That's just the reality because the committee has proven to give those programs the benefit of the doubt in the past. But if Cincinnati is undefeated, that looks a whole lot better versus a one-loss Ohio State or a one-loss Georgia. They'll have a puncher's chance to get in. Now, it's going to be tough for Cincinnati. Are they going to make the playoffs this year? I'm not quite sure, but they definitely have a chance. But in order to do so, they will probably more than likely need to run the table. They will have to play at Notre Dame, at Indiana, at Navy, and they also play UCF at home this year. Those are 4 games that are going to be tough games for Cincinnati to win. I believe they're going to be favored in most of those games, but man, going undefeated is definitely hard. But I won't be shocked if they do it because I think Notre Dame isn't quite as good this year. I think Indiana is a little bit overrated this year. Navy, we'll see what happens. UCF, we'll see what happens. But just the overall grind of a college football season can really take a toll on a team. But I won't be surprised if Cincinnati runs the table because they have a very talented team this year. And we'll see what happens. But Cincinnati, I'm definitely rooting for them. I'm from Ohio. I love to see a great storyline. And we'll see what Cincinnati football does this year in 2021. And from this point going forward, will Cincinnati be the first group of 5 teams to make it into the college football playoffs? Only time will tell, like I said. So I want to officially make my 2021-2022 college football playoff predictions for this upcoming season. So who's going to make it into the playoffs? Who are the 4 teams I believe in the most? I believe in no particular order. Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Alabama will make the college football playoffs. Now, I know some people out there are going to probably say, what about Georgia? Because Georgia has been a very popular pick among, college football fans who are betting on who's going to win the national championship this year. Listen, Georgia has a loaded roster, but I don't trust Kirby Smart in a tough spot. In a big moment versus a Dabo Swinney or a Nick Saban, I don't think Kirby matches up. I think Kirby falls short. I think Kirby's a good head coach, but I don't know if Kirby Smart has the ability to take it up to that next level. Now, Georgia's talent is next level, but is their coaching next level? Is their attention to detail next level? I'm not so sure, and I'm not betting on Kirby Smart this year. And I think the more expectations that have been placed upon Georgia, the further away they have gotten from Alabama. Because a couple of years ago, when they made it to the national championship game, a lot of people were surprised that Georgia knocked off Oklahoma in the Rose Bowl. Georgia flew under the radar that year. There were no expectations, but now when Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs are on the map, I don't know if they can live up to the expectations, okay? And Georgia's also had a couple of bad injuries already. I get it. You have a bunch of 4- and 5-star players, but I don't know. I just think that when it's all said and done, Georgia will probably lose to Clemson to open the season. I have Clemson winning that game. And in the SEC championship game, potentially, I got to take Alabama. I think that Nick Saban and Alabama are the team to trust. So I'm eliminating Georgia. I'm eliminating Cincinnati. just because I don't think Cincinnati is going to get the benefit of the doubt if they don't go undefeated. And listen, man, it's hard to go undefeated, man. Over the last 10 years, Alabama has finished once with an undefeated season. Now, they've had a couple of regular seasons where they've gone undefeated, but as far as last 10 years, their season in total, one undefeated season for Nick Saban. I like Luke Fickell, but going undefeated is hard, okay? They potentially could lose at Indiana, at Notre Dame. We'll see what happens, but I think Cincinnati just falls short this year. I think a team like Ohio State would get the benefit of the doubt over them. When it comes to Notre Dame, I'm not sold. Texas A&M this year, I'm not sold. So when it comes to Clemson, look, I expect them to beat Georgia week number 1. They'll roll through the ACC. Their defense should be much better this year with guys coming back and getting more experience. I have Clemson making the playoffs. Alabama, they will have to retool some things this year, but they're still one of the most talented teams in the nation. I believe they're going to win the SEC once again. And if you win the SEC, you're getting into the playoffs pretty much as a lock. Oklahoma, like I said earlier, they were my pick to win the national championship this year. Star quarterback in Spencer Rattler. Great offense. A defense that is trending on the upward. I believe in Lincoln Riley. And I think Oklahoma takes the trophy this year. So they're going to win the Big 12. They'll win it all this year. They'll be in the playoffs. Ohio State, I have them making the playoffs once again. I believe in Ryan Day. They do lose Justin Fields this year, but the defense should be much improved. The secondary especially. Ohio State will have to go on the road to face Indiana. They will have to play Oregon this year, but I think Ohio State will prevail, probably go undefeated, or at least only have one loss. They'll win the Big Ten, and they'll make the playoffs. They're still one of the most talented teams in the country, which they are year in and year out. So there you have it, my 2021-2022 college football predictions for the playoffs. Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Alabama make it in no particular order. And like I said earlier, I have Oklahoma winning the 2021-2022 national championship. So I want to end the show by going over the most underrated college football program and the most overrated college football program as I speak today. So let's start off with the most underrated college football program. Which program currently today is the most underrated program in all college football? That program to me is Oklahoma State. And the reason why I say Oklahoma State is because Oklahoma State has had 15 straight winning seasons. And they don't get talked about a whole lot. They seem to always fly under the radar year in and year out. And for 15 straight years, they've been above 500. And that's really, really hard to do because even top-of-the-line programs like LSU and Clemson can't say the same thing about Oklahoma State regarding Oklahoma State having 15 straight winning seasons. And I get it. LSU and Clemson, they're playing against the big dogs, but that's still a great accomplishment on the part of Oklahoma State. And Mike Gundy, the Oklahoma State head coach, he's very underrated. He's one of the better head coaches in all college football. 15 of his 16 years at Oklahoma have been winning seasons. And listen, I know Mike Gundy's not an elite head coach, but there are some college football programs that would love to have Mike Gundy as their head coach. You could do a whole lot worse than that guy. And Oklahoma also and Oklahoma State, I should say. Oklahoma State, pardon me. Oklahoma State also puts players in the NFL consistently. 12 of the last 13 years, Oklahoma State has had at least one player drafted into the NFL. In the last 5 years, they've had 12 players drafted. And some of those players have been good. You know, they've had Telvin Jenkins, Mason Rudolph, the NFL quarterback. Even Des Bryant from the past has gotten drafted. And also, they've developed a couple of Hall of Famers in Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders, who those two guys are two of the best running backs of all time, okay? So, Oklahoma State, to me, they're definitely an underrated program. And if I'm a college football, if I'm a high school recruit and I'm looking to play college football and get a solid education, I think Oklahoma State will be on my radar, no doubt about it, because it's a consistently good program with good people, and it's a winning program, no doubt about it. I think Oklahoma State is the most underrated college football program right now today in America. So we now transition to the most overrated program in college football right now. I believe the Michigan Wolverines are the most overrated college football program in America today. And when it comes to Michigan, people always say, oh, Michigan, most prestigious college football program in the nation, man. One of the most prestigious programs. And if you feel that way, that's fine. But we have to put an asterisk next to that. Michigan can only be the most prestigious college football program if you take away everything past the 1940s. If you just count the 1930s and the 1940s, yes, Michigan is the most prestigious college football program. But after that, if you count everything else, they're arguably the most overrated college football program in history. Okay? Michigan football has won one national title since 1948. And that one national title they won, they shared it with Nebraska in 1997. And when's the last time Michigan has legitimately been in the college football playoff conversation or the championship picture? They haven't existed in that picture in a long, long time. And everyone talks about how Michigan is this prestigious college football program. Well, how can that be the case when over the past 50 years or so, they haven't hardly ever been in the championship picture? Auburn has won a national championship during that time frame in the last 20 years. And Michigan hasn't. And Auburn's playing in the SEC with the big dogs like Alabama and LSU where the odds are stacked against them. Who's Michigan really had to go through? Ohio State? Wisconsin? That's it? So, I don't buy that Michigan is the top of the flight program. Right now, today, I would barely consider them a top 10 program. You know, it's just one of those things where I'm not seeing it with Michigan. You know, the brand that is Michigan has not matched the results. I understand they have a bunch of wins from the 30s and the 40s, 1930, 1940, I get it, but I'm not seeing it with Michigan. I believe the program's overrated, and that's how I feel. Michigan is the most overrated college football program in the nation today. Well, everyone, that's pretty much all I have today. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Have a God bless day. Stay safe, and I'm Ghost. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juiciest Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juiciest Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.